My next guest is a heavy-hitting bastion of Brexit who's spent years fighting for Britain's freedom from the EU. And despite all of his successes, Tory MP Mark Francois is still battling to guarantee Brexit survival from Remoaners in government, such as the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt. And as the EU suffered yet another corruption scandal this week with raids on politicians' homes, finding millions in dirty cash from Qatar, our decision to leave the continental gravy train has never looked better, in my opinion. As a key member of the European research group of Eurosceptic Conservatives, Mark penned a book on his so-called ban of Spartan MPs who helped deliver democracy in the face of unprecedented Remoaner obstruction. Now he's in talks for a bombshell movie that would dramatise how the Tory Spartans assured a full-throttled Brexit would be delivered. Now, I love this idea of Brexit, the movie, so we mulled it over and thought about which actors could play all the famous protagonists. Of course, you'd have to have Dominic Cummings again with Benedict Cumberbatch. But how about Sir Bill Cash, played by Charles Dance, or Theresa the Appeaser May, portrayed by Tilda Swinton, then EU menace Jean-Claude Juncker? How about Ralph Fiennes for him? And Jacob Rees-Mogg? Well, we thought David Tennant. Maybe a little flattering, but, you know, I think it works. Mark Francois, great to see you. I mean, look, it would be such a great movie, wouldn't it? Surely the producers are knocking down your door.
Well, I've been in talks with a few TV producers, and there has been some interest, I'm pleased to say. Look, Brexit, whatever view you took, was arguably the biggest event in British politics since the Second World War. And what the book does, and it's dedicated, by the way, to my great friend Sir David Amess. Oh. And what the book does is, as it says on the tin, it's the inside story of the battle for Brexit. And it explains in layman's English the 3-year battle we had in Parliament and in the media to get delivered the decision, the democratically arrived at decision of the British people. And there was immense resistance from the Remoaner element. And it basically tells the story of how, in the end, 28 Tory MPs won through and helped delivered what the people had voted for.
Yeah, because you behind the scenes, it was fascinating, wasn't it, what was going on? Because there were clashes at times between folk like you and Jacob Rees-Mogg, which were actually really emotional, right?
Yeah. Yes, I mean, when the public were looking in and they were seeing arguments about the Malthouse Compromise and the Brady Amendment and the Cooper Bowles-Letwin Bill and what was all this parliamentary gobbledygook about, and what the book does is it basically explains all of that in layman's English. But I do think this was such an important event in British history, someone should make a movie about it. Now, I mean, I would love the full, Hollywood biopic. And by the way, we thought that Bill Nye would be a very good person to play Bill Cash.
Oh, yes, that would work too.
Yeah, that would work, wouldn't it? But,
that would work too.
But even if we couldn't have the full Hollywood treatment, then, if you think of that 90-minute drama documentary that you referred to, Uncivil War, where Cumberbatch famously played Cummings and kind of got him to a T, something like that showed the public what was really going on in Parliament, I think would actually be worthwhile producing.
Well, indeed. And look, for a while, it looked like you guys had won. The ERG was all of a sudden the mainstream of the Conservative Party. But Mark Francois, Brexiteers like me outside of the party are now increasingly concerned with what we feel was an anti-democratic, globalist Remoaner coup to install Jeremy Hunt as Chancellor. He seems to be pulling a lot of the strings. The issue that I have with Hunt is that we know he wanted a second referendum. He wrote it. We know he wanted to tie us to a Norway-style deal in perpetuity. So how are you feeling about your leadership at the moment, and can we really trust them on Brexit?
Well, look, in the end, after this battle, and if you forgive me for saying so, the book's still available on Amazon, the softback,
yes, here it is.
£13, still a rise for Christmas. Thank you very much.
I like
very
it.
Good. If you've got a friend who's a Remainer and you want to wind them up, send them that as a Christmas present. But I mean, no, we did succeed. We left the European Union.
Yes.
Yeah, we legally were out. But we're still arguing about things like the Northern Ireland Protocol.
Yeah, because Brexit was always going to be a long-term project, right?
Yes, it was never going to be just an overnight occurrence.
So Hunt, I mean, can the ERG trust this guy?
I think we need to get a proper deal on the Northern Ireland Protocol. Now, he's not in the lead on that. It's James Cleverly, the Foreign Secretary, who is a Eurosceptic by background. I think, providing we continue with the protocol bill, and the fact that the EU so hates it tells you how valuable it is as a negotiating lever. If we stick to our guns, I think it is possible to negotiate a reasonable deal. But if the EU are intransigent, we should push ahead with the bill.
Is it fair to say that Suella Braverman is the only one of proper ERG stock now in the cabinet?
No, I'm not sure that's absolutely right. But nevertheless, Suella has always been, very robust on the European issue. And obviously there's been much debate, including in Parliament today, about the boats in the Channel issue. I think you're going to see a great debate about that in the new year.
Leaving the ECHR?
Well, when the Prime Minister brings forward the bill that he's now promised the Commons, which is meant to address this directly, I think the nub of the issue will be a so-called notwithstanding clause, which basically means that in this particular scenario, the boats in the Channel, the ECHR will not apply. And I can see there being a great deal of debate in Parliament about that. But that's what you're going to need if the legislation is going to work.
Indeed. But I come back to my point that there are not many of your stock anymore in positions of power.
Well, there weren't many of our stock in positions of power when we were debating the withdrawal agreement, but we still won in the end. And I think we won because of the quality of the argument and because we were...
But the ERG is not going anywhere then?
Well, we have been absolutely consistent on the Northern Ireland Protocol, and that is anything, any deal that ends up with the European Court of Justice still having authority in Northern Ireland to overrule UK law is completely unacceptable. And I think, even if it were acceptable to us to have that, then it wouldn't be to the DUP. And frankly, unless the DUP agree, nothing will work. And why do you need to solve the problem of the protocol? Because otherwise, ultimately, the Good Friday Agreement would collapse. And no one of any political colour wants to see that.
The stakes are incredibly high. Look, final question. Rishi Sunak voted for Brexit.
Yes.
But is he a Brexiteer?
By definition, he voted for Brexit. The most important thing, and the book really brings this point out, because in the end we thought we were actually, became a struggle for democracy. It was a struggle to uphold the right of the British people to decide their own destiny. So whether Rishi Sunak voted for Brexit, or whether you voted for Brexit, or I voted for Brexit, the most fundamentally important bit, and this is the principle that we were fighting for all along, is that 17.4 million British people voted for Brexit. And that book is about how it was actually delivered.